Sounds like a case for the RSPCA on BBC Two in about 10 minutes when they're riding the dog. In fact, it's a look at that American tradition, the Greyhound bus. Here on BBC One, in a quarter of an hour, Songs of Praise celebrates Christmas at Warwick Castle with Karen Keating and Alan Titchmarsh. After a roundup of the news with Chris Lowe.
The headlines this evening: America says it would not object if Warsaw Pact troops went to the aid of the revolutionaries in Romania. Gunfire still fills the air as the army try to force Ceausescu's henchmen to lay down their arms. Some have already been captured and put behind bars to save them from the lynch mobs. In the midst of the turmoil, time for some small semblance of normality. Good evening. In another day of savage fighting in the streets of Bucharest, there's growing international concern about the situation. The US Secretary of State, James Baker, says America would support the Warsaw Pact if it decided to send in troops to back up the Romanian revolution. Yesterday, Mr. Gorbachev seemed to rule out military action by the Soviet Union. The French Foreign Minister thinks the West should consider intervening and says France would be prepared to send in armed volunteers. In the Romanian capital today, security police fanatically loyal to the deposed dictator are still fighting the army. Revolutionary leaders have called on them to surrender and gave them till tomorrow afternoon to hand in their arms. In the last 2 days of fighting in Bucharest, as many as 5,000 people may already have died, according to the Red Cross. There's been even heavier loss of life in Timișoara. There and in other provincial cities, the pro-Ceausescu gunmen are still being hunted down. From Bucharest, our Foreign Affairs editor, John Simpson.
The civil war being fought out in the streets of Bucharest can have only one outcome. The immense firepower of the army, reinforced by the anger of ordinary people, must soon overcome the bitter last-ditch resistance of the Ceausescu loyalists. But a lot of destruction and killing is taking place while the business of flushing out the snipers continues. The vicious snap of rifle fire comes from the snipers themselves. The heavier sound of the machine guns is the army's answering fire. This man was hit by a shot from the top of a nearby building. Without proper medical help, he died quickly. Not far away, one of the snipers was captured. The loyalists are an extraordinary group, most of them diehards from the Securitate, the old secret police. This man was lucky not to be shot out of hand. Overlooking the main street of Bucharest, several snipers have taken over rooms and the upper floors of a block of flats. It's taken some time for people to work out their precise position.
What seems to be happening is that there's a sniper just above our heads. There's little bits of the building falling off around me as we speak, and he's firing down at a fairly narrow angle down to the crowd here. The crowd is just over there, is just out of the range of the sniper, and there are people taking cover in all directions.
But there's a determination on the part of these people which I haven't seen in other places. They won't leave till the last Securitate men have been put out of action for good.
Tell us who it is and where is he?
Terrorist.
Yeah.
4, maybe 5.
Yes.
Man.
Yes. Up on this side?
Yes.
And has anybody gone into the building to catch them?
Yes. The many men, army.
Yes.
Go for
to kill them.
Kill
them.
In the cellars of the building, meanwhile, they're cutting off the possible exits. But the Securitate men have been well trained. While the soldiers and volunteers go up the front way, most of them have managed to escape by the back. The crowd, though, has trapped this man. But even when they attack him, he stays remarkably cool. He insists he's just an ordinary off-duty policeman, which explains the fact that he's carrying a gun. They believe him largely because they've got it into their heads that most of the snipers are Libyans or Palestinians. The ambassador's residence is in an area where many Securitate men lived. Sizable numbers of snipers still occupy places nearby and keep up a continual fire at the television station. The army is dug in all round the perimeter, but that didn't stop one Securitate man last night getting in and stabbing 7 people in the television station. If Ceausescu's men are that determined, the civil war isn't over yet. John Simpson, BBC News, Bucharest.
And the Foreign Office has said that the British Embassy in Bucharest has been evacuated. Staff and their families have been moved to the American Embassy, which is in a quieter location. In the western town of Timișoara, the army appears to have regained control after several hours of intense fighting. At the height of it, our correspondent Michael Macmillan was trapped inside a hospital under fire from security police snipers.
On the operating table, one of 2 Romanian soldiers defending the building. He has been hit in the leg.
The time now is about 10 to 9. The night is still ahead in Timișoara. This is the first of perhaps 10, 20, 30, 40 victims that this hospital is treating every night.
Within minutes, another casualty, an American reporter who has a bullet wound in the back. In another ward, what illustrates this civil war's cold, bitter contempt for human life, the youngest of the victims. Each of these children has been wounded by gunfire in the streets, which has, by all accounts, not hit them accidentally. They have been deliberate victims of the state police. Downstairs, panic. Romanian military reinforcements have arrived, but then the Securitate appear to have surrounded the building. The hospital director is worried.
The situation is very hot. They are attacking our hospital from both sides. From one side, they are shooting from a big building, and on the other side, on the park side, they are coming also. The situation is hot because we have only 12 soldiers here in the hospital. One of them was already wounded.
That everyone in this hospital saw daylight is thanks to these Romanian soldiers who, although heavily outgunned by the Securitate, managed to hold their ground. It is to these men who escorted us out of Timișoara this morning that Romanian citizens must place their faith and their future as this bloody civil war continues. Michael Macmillan, BBC News, Timișoara, Romania.
In Timișoara, many hardliners loyal to the Ceausescu regime have begun surrendering. Among them are many women. They've been taken under the protection of the army to keep the populace from lynching them.
The revolution started in Timișoara 1 week ago, and finally it seems as if the die-hard pro-Ceausescu forces are giving up there. These 3 are members of the hated security police, wearing the telltale anoraks that conceal weapons. They're lucky the army got to them first. Elsewhere, the terrorists, as they're now called, have had to run the public gauntlet. Whether their surrender is in response to the call for a ceasefire by the National Salvation Front in Bucharest is not clear. The call is not just aimed at ending the bloodshed, but an attempt to restore order. The army is trying to prevent any public lynching, and centres are being opened up to detain them till they can be brought to trial. Further north in Sibiu, where Ceausescu's son was party leader until arrested on Friday, there have been some intense skirmishes. At times so intense that it wasn't possible to attend to the casualties. Some of the heaviest fighting in Bucharest has been at the airport. But according to Bucharest Radio, the airport, with other strategic institutions, remains under the control of revolutionary forces. Here too, the pro-Ceausescu forces are now being captured.
Here, the Red Cross appeal, which was launched yesterday, has already raised £175,000. The biggest donation was £100,000 from Oxfam. Tonight, a plane chartered by the Red Cross will fly out medical supplies bound for Romania.
The Red Cross say the response to their appeal has been phenomenal. All phone lines have been busy constantly since they opened this morning. Tonight, a specially chartered plane will take 31 tons of bandages, antibiotics and blood